that won 20 games for the Orioles in 1963, big left-hander, was living in retirement in Las Vegas, driving a school bus. So I interviewed him, and he told the whole story about how he was too wild, never would have made it, and finally did make it. Great baseball stories. I flew to Florida strictly to interview Earl Weaver. I called Earl. I said, Earl, I'm doing this book. He goes, oh, all right. So I come, specifically fly down, knock on his door at 8:30 in the morning, and hear this shuffling. He's living off on a golf course, basically. He opens the door, looks at me. He goes, oh, yeah. And that was his greeting. And so I said, morning, Earl. And I did. I knew Earl. I'd covered him and gotten along with him pretty well. So we drove up to the clubhouse at his golf course with his wife. And Earl Weaver, we're driving. We're on the way. And he goes, now, how much are you paying me for this? I was like, Earl, you know how this works, Earl. I'm not paying you a dime. And he goes, ah. So he groaned. So anyway, so he takes me to breakfast at his golf club. And every one of these interviews, okay, I am getting on tape. I have a little plastic micro cassette recorder I would have it tonight, but I lost it. It's about this big, weighs about 2 pounds. You can hold it in your hand. And I had what you put in them and recorded them on was a little micro cassette tape. 60-minute limit. 60-minute limit on each one. So if I'm talking to Earl, I could have talked to Earl Weaver for 20 hours about he's the pivotal figure in my mind in the history of the team. I could have talked to him about anything. I got a couple hours with Earl. But anyway, talking about his upbringing in St. Louis and his managerial philosophy and controversial moments and everything. It's all on tape. All right, I had it on tape. And I continued doing these interviews. I would come home and transcribe the interview, and then go get another interview. All right, slowly gathered as much tape as I could over the years. I went to, I made a special trip to Oklahoma to interview Jim Gentile. All right, the first slugger. All right, he's living outside Oklahoma City, and couldn't wait to talk to me. All right, and talked to me about, I told him I was coming, or I asked him, got his phone number. He said, sure. So he told me, now Jim Gentile, really one of the first really great moments in Oriole history, they were playing the Minnesota Twins one day in early '61. He hit a grand slam in the first inning. Then, bases are loaded, in the second inning, he hits another grand slam. All right? Top of the second, he's got 8 RBIs. Okay, it's unbelievable performance, and went down in history. He wound up having a great year. So he never hit as well after that year. He's a real fiery personality, interesting guy. Much calmer now in retirement in 1999. So Jim Gentile, I said, well, let's talk about that date. He goes, I shouldn't tell you the story. I said, well, it's too late now. Now you have to really tell me the story. So he, as it turned out, a little bit of a night owl, had been out all night before that game. I don't know that he was drinking heavily, but he had been out all night. And he goes to, and it's a day game. It was a day game. So he's out all night. He goes to the hotel, showers, goes to the ballpark. They put him in the lineup, and he hits 2 grand slams. He goes, I shouldn't tell you that story. I said, well, it's too late now. So anyway. So this is the kind of stuff I'm starting to gather, and I have the Jim Gentile tape. And, of course, the vast majority of the interviews I had, they were around here. Brooks, I knew. I said, Brooks, I'm doing this project. Will you sit for an interview? He said, of course. So I interviewed him at the ballpark. Again, this is 1999. Brooks is retired now, not in the media. Got him, I think, twice. Boog Powell. Again, if you're around the team as I was, you just get to know these fellas. You write about them a little bit. Boog Powell, we sat in his backyard, and he told me his whole story of how he almost played football instead of baseball. And actually, we spent a lot more time talking about barbecuing and beer than we did baseball, because that's where his restaurant was going great guns. Paul Blair. Paul Blair was the baseball coach at Coppin State. All right. I think their first year they went 1-43. Something like it didn't go well. It wasn't going well at all. But Paul Blair, great guy to talk to, incredible Oriole. On and on it went. A lot of guys at the ballpark, I would talk. They were still in uniform. Elrod Hendricks was a coach. One of my favorite people that I ever came across in the years with the Orioles, and in many respects, the conscience of the Orioles. And I think I have 3 tapes of Elrod. We just went on and on, his opinions on things. He sort of got it. He got it, the Orioles and Baltimore and just the whole marriage. Better than just about anybody. Talked to Elrod. I had an interview with Mike Flanagan, who was an incredible interview. Mike Flanagan is one of the wittiest and smartest and most observant people I have ever interviewed. And also another guy, I think, and of course he was the pitcher. The first glory years were Brooks and Boog and Frank, and then the second glory years were Palmer and Flanagan and Ken Singleton and those guys. And Mike Flanagan was the one who understood more than anyone what was going on with that team, or could articulate it. Let me put it that way. That the teams were all about being smart, playing great defense, pitching well, not making mistakes, having, as Ken Singleton said, having a little bit of a lunatic as a manager. But, and Ken Singleton is another who I interviewed. Great. He was a Yankee broadcaster by then, a really good broadcaster. Very insightful guy to talk to. So I had just on and on. I found even some obscure players, not obscure, they weren't obscure in their day. Who remembers Jackie Brandt? All right, Jackie Brandt was the center fielder for 6 years before Paul Blair. And I found him, his daughter lives 3 minutes from here. And so I set up an interview with him and went over and sat in his daughter's front room while his grandchildren ran around. And Jackie's still alive, I believe. And interviewed him about his era. He was kind of known as kind of a nutty guy, funny guy. So